Hello, and thank you for tuning into this week's Mayor's Update. As always, we have a lot of important information to share with you this week, so please feel free to share this video with your friends, family, relatives, and anyone else you think might find this information helpful over the course of the coming week. The Gardner Museum has announced its fall lecture series, which promises something for everyone. There's a series of different events that they have planned throughout the fall season. So for more information on that, you can search at gardnermuseuminc.com. Again, gardnermuseuminc.com. For information all about the upcoming fall lecture series that will take place. And of course, the 19th annual Festival of Trees will begin on November 13th at the Gardner Museum as well. That annual tradition is always something that several people look forward to each and every year. So thank you very much to the Gardner Museum and their friends group who put that on each and every year. Gardner Public Schools has issued their new school calendar for the upcoming school year. The first day of classes for Gardner Public School students will be on Tuesday, September 3rd. You can find a complete calendar on the school's website, www.gardnerk12.org. Again, that's www.gardnerk12.org. With schools starting a month away, we also want to make sure that students know about several local organizations that are trying to alleviate the financial burden that school supplies can place on our students and our families. The backpack program annually organized by the Gardner Community Action Committee gives out over 200 brand new backpacks fully filled with school supplies. Parents and guardians are required to pre-register at the CAC's website to be able to go to a pickup date. The pickup date and location for free school supplies have not yet been announced, but you do have to pre-register for those. So again, if you're interested in the CAC's backpack program for the backpacks that are fully loaded with school supplies that are given out to individuals for free, again, you have to pre-register for that on the CAC's website. On Saturday, August 17th, between 9 a.m. and 12 noon, families will have the opportunity to grab free school supplies and backpacks also as well at the Family Resource Center in Gardner, located at 205 School Street in the old Simplex building in Suite 302. There are limited quantities of this though, so it is on a first come, first served basis. The August yard waste pickup will be the week of August 6th through August 9th for Gardner residents, and again, that takes place on your regular trash day. As a reminder, grass clippings and leaves may be placed in paper bags or loose and open barrels with no lid. Again, no plastic bags for those. E.L. Harvey has asked that residents no longer use cardboard boxes. There is no limit to how many containers or bags of yard waste you can put out. Sticks of less than 2 inches thick and up to 3 feet long may be placed out in bundles. Yard waste may also not include rocks, gravel, sod, dirt, or anything like that. All bundles and containers must weigh less than 50 pounds each, but again, you can put out as many as you want. And if your yard waste is not removed by the end of your scheduled day, you can call E.L. Harvey's call center directly within 48 hours of when your yard pickup was supposed to be, and that number is 1-800-321-3002. The library will be having their next big book sale in September, on September 26th through 28th. They are currently accepting donations of gently used books, whether it's novels, children's books, fictions, nonfiction, anything in between. Your donations help raise funds to support the library and its many programmings throughout the year, and donating is easy. Simply drop off your gently used books during regular hours at the library, and feel free to spread the word to your friends and neighbors. Every book donated brings us one step closer to fostering a love of reading in our community and helps out our local library. August is here, so we'd like to remind everyone that the annual International Overdose Awareness Day and Night of Hope is taking place on Wednesday, August 28th from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. at Monument Park. And immediately following that ceremony, there is a luminary lighting ceremony at City Hall immediately following the event. More information on that as the event gets closer. The Greater Gardner National Night Out is also taking place in a few weeks actually. Now, here I am saying next month when we're already in August. But it's going to take place on August 8th from 5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Gardner High School. I want to thank Veronica, Patty, and everyone at the Gardner Community Action Team for putting that very successful event on each and every year. We had an exciting announcement for Gardner this past week. For those of you who are watching this on GETV, you'll see this shortly after my update is done. If you're online watching this on YouTube, you'll see a separate video about a press conference that was held earlier this week where we got to announce the city's 2024 CDBG Grant Award. Now that's the Community Development Block Grant Awards. That's money that the federal government gives to the state, who then gives out to local cities and towns with a population under 50,000 for different projects. A large portion of that grant is going towards the demolition of the former School Street school site. That school has been vacant since 1987. So again, 1987, nothing's been happening at that property since it stopped being used as an elementary school. Since then, we've had several safety concerns that were raised in terms of break-ins and building stability, concerns with lighting issues over at Jackson Playground. This project should alleviate all of that by bringing actual upgrades to Jackson Playground. So a portion of it's going to be used to increase parking, because Jackson Playground currently has no parking except for on-street parking, but also increasing some of the playground's outlay and what it's available there to people, and seeing if eventually we can get some new playground equipment out there. The reason why we're looking at expanding Jackson Playground as part of that project is there is a state law known as Article 97, which says if land was purchased originally for either recreational purposes or conservation purposes, it has to be used for that amount unless the state legislature in Boston allows you to use the land for something different. The land that School Street School was built on before that law was passed was originally purchased to make Jackson Playground. So the land has to be used right now at this time for playground purposes unless the state legislature was to vote different. That could take up to 2 years. So we're just going to expand Jackson Playground with that and make it a new amenity to that section of the cities that's there. Additionally, the Gardner Emergency Housing Mission is receiving funds to be able to continue their work with combating homelessness in Gardner and helping create transitional housing in the city. The Gardner Voices of Truth and Gardner Domestic Violence Task Force is receiving funding to help with their domestic violence advocacy efforts here in Gardner. The CAC is receiving funding to help grow their food pantry efforts in Gardner. And then Gardner Public Schools is receiving a large portion of the grant too to fully eliminate user fees for athletic sports over at Gardner Public Schools. Prior to when we stopped waiving these fees, every student had to pay $100 per sport per season or $500 for a hockey season. We now make it so that no financial barriers can inhibit any students from participating in a sports at our schools. So thank you very much to our partners, the Healy-Driscoll administration, Congresswoman Trahan at the federal level, State Representative John Zlotnick here at the local level, and everyone in between for helping make this grant a possibility, and really looking forward to seeing the exciting work that's going to be done with that money here in Gardner. Now, we got to do one of our traveling updates today, so I do want to show you the work that's happening behind me if you haven't been downtown lately. A couple of you may remember a couple years ago, the City Council voted to approve a grant match to some community development block grant funds to create a new park over at the site of the former Mackey building. The building was too small to make it a buildable lot, and the grade on it is too steep to be able to use anything as it was before. So it really was a lot that could be used for nothing. So now we're able to terrace the lot. It'll be outdoor seating on the lower level. This level right behind me will be a outdoor cornhole facility, so a bring your own bags cornhole facility, where it's basically a sidewalk panel lifted up with a hole drilled in it. And then the upper level will be a fully electrified outdoor stage if anyone wants to do any outdoor performances. Really exciting to see something that was really just unusable right in the heart of the downtown. It was just a maintenance item for us to just mow it and leave it and then do nothing with it, to now something that's actually can be used for people in the community. So since we like to show off some of the projects that we're doing in these updates, that's what we got with you here today. That concludes this week's Mayor's Update. As always, if you have any questions on anything we talked about at all, or anything you see happening around the city, please feel free to let us know at any time. Thank you very much, and have a great day. Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us here today at School Street School here in Gardner for a very exciting announcement for us here in the Chair City with the state's announcements last week of the Community Development Block Grant Funds and what that means for us here in Gardner. We have a lot of officials and a lot of important guests who are joining us here today to celebrate the $925,000 of funding that the city's received as part of our CDBG grant that we received for the coming fiscal year, and a lot of people who are going to highlight those projects along the way and why we're here over at School Street School. So at this time, I'd like to kick things over to our State Representative John Zlotnick, who the state acts as our granting authority for this funding that comes from the federal government, and to say a few words for us. John?
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. It's always a pleasure to support the Community Development Block Grant Program. This is an important partnership between the federal government, the state government, and our partners at the local level. It really helps us fill gaps and be flexible with funding for a wide array of programs and projects that quite frankly just don't fit well into other programs or other funding streams, and it gives local officials the flexibility to take care of needs as they come up without some of the more cumbersome processes that sometimes occur when you get federal or state funding. So that's why we're as always, glad to continue to support this, and we thank our congressional delegation, Congresswoman Lori Trahan, who couldn't be here today, but is always a big supporter of the funding for this coming back to this district and this part of the state as well. And we're here in front of School Street School. The demolition of this is on the list for this round of funding. And I have to commend the City of Gardner, the Nicholson administration as well as the City Council for prioritizing either redeveloping, repurposing, selling, or demolishing many of these old buildings that the city has been kicking around for a long time, and either getting them back on the tax rolls or giving them a new life with a new purpose. And so it's a pleasure, especially this year with CDBG, to see some of that money going towards this project that we're standing in front of that sorely needs it and will give I think, a much needed boost to this neighborhood, this part of town, and to Jackson Playground, which is just on the other side of this building that soon you'll be able to see from where we're standing. So thank you again to the City of Gardner and all the partnership for this program. And leading that effort on the City Council, and it's my pleasure to introduce her next, Council President Elizabeth Kaczynskis.
Thank you, Rep. Zlotnick, Mayor Nicholson. Thank you, everyone. The City Council's role with CDBG funding is to approve the projects and the funding that we do receive. It is a huge help for the efforts that we particularly have to approve on a regular basis with the spending of our city funding. It's a wonderful complement to it. It's a great example of the way that federal, state, and local funding work together to be able to fund projects in the city, move things forward, and really capitalize on the different efforts that we have to try to improve the community. We're incredibly lucky to be part of CDBG and have the funding available to us. And I think the City Council recognizes in our unanimous votes to approve the projects as well as the funding that we understand the use of the funding and why it's important to us. And we get to see the positive growth in the city. And not only is it positive growth, but it's also sustainable when we are able to demolish buildings or repurpose them and really just take care of our infrastructure here. That is going to last for years and years to come. And that's going to help us with our local funding in the future, as well as finding ways to make our city better. And we do have on the City Council a designee to the CDBG Steering Committee, and that is Councillor George Tyros, and I'm glad to welcome him here.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd just like to briefly say that it's a pleasure working on the steering committee. The steering committee does really good work. We receive a lot of applications, and we really look at the developmental and growth goals of Gardner when we choose the initiatives that we'd like to support. I just want to briefly say two things. One, that I think Gardner is extremely fortunate not only to get this funding, but to also have the council's support for these initiatives. Oftentimes, the CDBG funding will get a project initiated or started or maybe completed, but there are times where the City Council needs to appropriate funds to either match contributions for studies, either to get the project expanded to encompass more of its initiative, or to just get it over the finish line. And as the Council President said, oftentimes the City Council votes unanimously in support of these projects, and I'm proud to be a part of those votes. The second thing Gardner has going for it is we have excellent representation at the state level in my friend Representative Zlotnick, who pushes for Gardner to receive great funding, great support from the state to connect these projects and complete a vision of developing Gardner for the better. And I wasn't told who I'm passing it off to next, but I'll give it to Mayor Nicholson.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Councillor. Celebrating funding like this is always, good for the city and celebrating the projects that this funding goes towards, but we also need to thank the people who make this possible. So I do want to give a shout out to my team from City Hall who's here with us today, who oversee these projects, who help us obtain this funding. Our Director of Community Development, Trevor Beauregard, our Assistant Director, Evan Cudmore, and Economic Development Coordinator, Amber Labonte. Thank you guys for being here and for the work that you do for the city. I also want to say a special thank you to our city councilors who have joined us today, besides the two that you've heard from, Councillor Dana Heath and Councillor Brad Heglin, who are also here with us today, and our City Building Commissioner, Tom Zupa, who's also joined us. The funding that we're receiving, you heard me say earlier, it's $920,000 that'll be spent in this round of funding. And you heard Representative Zlotnick point out that a large portion of that, about $750,000, is the demolition of the building behind me, the former School Street School that's been vacant in this city since 1987, and then expanding the parking opportunities and some opportunities for growth in Jackson Playground. That's going to be the biggest portion of that. We also have different social services who are benefiting from this year's round of funding. several of which have representatives who have joined us here today as well. Funding going to our Gardner athletic programs at Gardner Public Schools to make it so that for a fifth year in a row, none of our students at Gardner Public Schools will have to pay any athletic user fees in order to play on any of our sports teams at Gardner Public Schools. Prior to this happening, several of our sports teams would be about $100 per sport per season and about $500 for hockey. This will make it so that none of our students have to worry about any economic situations happening at home, playing a part into whether or not they can participate in our sports programs. Gardner Emergency Housing, the Voices of Truth, and Gardner Community Actions Committee, the Gardner CAC, are also benefiting from this year's round of funding, and we have brief remarks from some of the members of those organizations, beginning with Julie Meehan, Executive Director of the Gardner Community Action Committee.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Nicholson, State Representative Zlotnick, Madam President Lizzie Kaczynskis, and Councilor George Tyros. I just want to take a quick minute to thank you. These are critical funds to help us in a crucial time of need, and we couldn't do what we do without the support from block grants like this, so thank you very much.
Next, we have Bernice from the Voices of Truth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, representatives and council, city council. Thank you so much. I am Bernice from Voices of Truth. And Voices of Truth is an organization that works with domestic violence victims and survivors. And the one barrier that we had is how do we get our services out to the community? And due to confidentiality and the nature of the work that we're doing, we needed a program that would be out in the public. And what we were able to do is develop the Gardner Domestic Violence Task Force. And through the CDBG grant funds, we were able to accomplish the work that we are doing with the Gardner Domestic Violence Task Force to bring awareness, to bring education, to help the community understand and have discussion about a topic that is very hard to talk about. And it's been successful through the help of the CDBG grant, and we thank you so much. Thank you.
And then lastly on our list, we have representatives from the Gardner Emergency Housing Mission who are also benefiting from this grant.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, John. We're from the Gardner Emergency Housing Mission, and my name is James DeVoe.
Janet Stankaitis.
Thank you, Janet. And we'd like to thank the administration for providing us with these funds that are so critically needed at this time, especially this time for our local area for the homeless. We work with transitional homeless people, which are families that are in critical need of places to stay, and there's so much homelessness going on due to apartments not being available, or people getting evicted for rents going up too high. And with these funds we like to provide to our community and keep it in the community, and it's thanks to John and Mike and their administration that we are fortunate to get the funding from this grant. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
These funds each and every year really do play a big part in helping Gardner move forward, be it from the several years in the past that we've had this happen with our downtown improvement projects, the infrastructure project you've seen around the city. Things like this that we see right here, all the way down to the revitalization of the Greenwood Pool in Rome Square. A lot happens because of these community development block grant funds that we receive, and there's a lot of people behind each and every move that you see happening with those projects. And coming here on a day like today to celebrate an advancement like this and the next step of that journey for us in the city makes all the behind the scenes work worth it and gets us ready to start that next step on that journey moving forward. So again, I want to say thank you very much to my team here at Gardner and our Community Development and Planning Department for the work that you do to make this possible. Our partners that we have at the state level with Representative Zlotnick and everyone else to make sure that Gardner gets this funding from the federal government, and of course Congressman Trahan, our federal delegation, and our partners at the federal government who make this funding available to begin with. We've got a lot left to do to get this project off the ground and going, but journey starts with the first step, and that's what we're doing here today. Looking forward to seeing you at our next celebration that we have once this is all completed, and I'll happy to answer any questions if anyone has any at this time. Amelia.
So I know you said this is the first step, but do you have a timeline when this building will go down?
Trevor, Evan, do you have a timeline?
Sometime next year,
Yeah.
2025.
Like early or late?
Mid
Early, mid, yeah.
mid 2025 if you're listening on the TV. Any other questions? All right. Well, that concludes the speaking portion we have here. If we can get everyone together for a picture, and then we'll wrap it up and take it out from there. Thank you all very much.